Hello, everyone. For today's presentation, I'm going to be talking about SEL strategies for the classroom. Um, this presentation is going to specifically focus on the second grade classroom and strategies that you can use inside the classroom to implement any SEL. So, second grade is the average age is 7 to 8 years old. And for this presentation, I'm going to be kind of sorting the strategies that you can use in second grade through the SEL approaches, which is in the green box on this slide. It says explicit SEL skills instruction, teachers' instructional practices, integration with academic curriculum areas, organizational, cultural, and climate strategies. And actually, sometimes approach might fit more than one, but I'm just going to list it under one. Now, the first area we're going to talk about today is the SEL approach, explicit SEL instruction. So, the strategy for this one is actually to teach daily lessons, and this specific curriculum goes between 22 and 28 weeks. For second grade, there's a 28-week curriculum. This is a daily curriculum where they're using several different key strategies to reinforce skill development. So there's actually a lot of different strategies that are used within this SEL curriculum. So there's brain builder games, weekly theme activities, reinforcing activities, and home links. And what this usually looks like is on day one, there's like a script and a lesson that is explicitly taught to the students. On day two, there's a story, and then is a discussion within the class about that story. And day 3 and 4, there's practice activities for whole and small group. And then by the time you get to 5, there's a reading that's connected to the unit theme along with home link that that are sent home so students can practice the new skills they've learned that week with their caregivers at home. Now, this strategy supports students because there's units that focus on all 5 of the SEL competencies: self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision making, self-management, and relationship skills. And there's units focusing on learning empathy, emotional management, friendship skills, and problem solving. So, this right here is the bedrock for how SEL is going to be taught to students. And then from there, they're going to do additional strategies to support it. But it's really important to start with a research proven curriculum. These SEL curriculums that are research proven have already been vetted, so you know that they're going to be successful. As we move on to this slide, you're going to see SEL approach, teacher instructional practices, strategy, mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is a great strategy to use on a daily basis. I personally like to use it for transitions. Now, what I do for mindfulness is students come in from in the beginning of the morning, or they come in from recess, and or maybe we're switching subjects or types. We have to go to the library or something. I might do a quick mindfulness to calm everybody down. Now, I personally use Go Noodle, but there's lots of different apps out there like Calm that are free for teachers to use. And a guided mindfulness is a great way for students to calm themselves, calm their bodies, practice self regulation. And research shows that mindfulness interventions show improvements in emotional distress, self perception, and improvement of SEL skills. So, this is just one that usually for me only takes 3 minutes. If there are ones that can go as long as 5 and ones as short as 1, but on average, I spend at least 3 minutes doing this. But I spend a lot less time actually redirecting students because it really does help them focus on whatever they're they're trying to do. So if they're very energetic and antsy, a mindfulness can be there could be one about calming. finding your center. If there's disagreements in class or people are fighting, I'll do one that's focused on empathy. And there's yogas that are mindfulness, the guided mindfulness, where they are just practicing on calming their body and calming their mind. This is a great strategy for second graders. I have found that if I skip my mindfulness session between subjects, I spend much more of my time, instructional time, redirecting students to get back on task or to pay attention to me, or to just all around calm their bodies. It is a great tool, an easy tool to use. You just need to have some type of speaker. You can do it from your phone. I personally like to project it and have it guided where they're seeing the visual along with it, because some students are visual. The next SEL approach is going to focus on teacher instructional practices. So the one for this page focuses on the strategy of student check-ins. Now, student check-ins can be done a lot of different ways. This is a daily check-in, and it's going to support students in a few different ways. One, the it's going to support the SEL competency of self awareness, because they're going to have to really think about how they're feeling and identify their emotions, and then use that to kind of advocate their feelings and share their feelings, which would be this is a really good thing, because uh, it will give the teacher a chance to know, hey, there's something additional going on that they may not have caught. And it also lets the students ad- practice identifying those emotions and knowing it's okay to have them. There's a couple different ways you can do this. So I on this chart on this slide, I on the right picture where it says Monday check-in, you can see a whiteboard, and there's just post-it notes. And students just come in and they choose, I'm great, I'm okay, I'm meh, I'm struggling, I'm having a tough day and wouldn't mind a check-in, I'm not doing good. So this kind of gives the students a chance to share how they're feeling, and if they want to check in, they can put a post-it note there and just let you know that they need that check-in. Here, this is a digital version of the same thing. I pulled this from Teacher Pay Teacher because that is a great resource for anytime you need anything. There's probably another teacher that has made something you need. Um, but this is a bunch of Google forms that were created that have just a check-in for every day. Ask the students what zone they're in, and then there's some type of question, SEL type framed question, where they're talking about a feeling for that day. And then the picture on the bottom just shows some clips that are on the whiteboard for students to do the same thing like they did with the post-it notes. It's just another way to show it. But a daily check-in is a great way to just kind of check to see how your students are doing, and it helps them practice that self-awareness piece. Now, this page here is another instructional practice. This is a token economy. This one can be used daily. This strategy can support students because by reinforcing responsible decision making and self management skills, and it also helps redirect behavior of other students. I'm going to give you a few examples of this. So, I have a student that is running around my classroom when they're not supposed to be, and I can call that student out right away, or I can use some positive reinforcement by saying, "Oh, thank you so much, Samuel, for sitting quietly in your seat and waiting for me. You are being very respectful to yourself and to others." And then I would give him a roar ticket. That's doing two things. One is reinforcing the positive decision, the responsible decision that he just made by sitting in his seat and being ready to start the day. And it also helped redirect the other student and give the other student the opportunity to pull it back and go, okay, let's think about this. Let me think about the situation. Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? And then using that responsible decision making to make a better choice. I mean, sometimes it doesn't always work, but that redirection can sometimes, through giving somebody else a positive note, can really help without pointing a student out as you are not doing what you're supposed to do. It's just acknowledging the positive behavior without pointing out the negative behavior. And that actually kind of helps with relationship skills too, because then the students have a little bit better of a relationship with you because you're having more positive interactions than negative interactions. Now, this slide actually has a lot of different strategies on it. So I'm going to go through them and just kind of go it. This whole slide is focused on strategies that pinpoint that just kind of narrow in on self-regulation techniques. Now, this can be used whenever you need it. And this might be multiple times a day, it might be once a week. It just depends on your students, their needs. Um, I actually started doing most of these ones here because my first year inside the classroom, my induction teacher was an SDC teacher for first through third, and so I got a lot of great self-regulation strategies to put in. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of the strategies and tell you about them. Uh, One of the strategies that students can do for self-management and self-awareness is journaling. And how I would do that is every student had a composition book and I would put a prompt that would say, what is your your happiest memory? Um, what is something that makes you sad? Different prompts to help them just kind of talk about what they feel. And sometimes journaling does help. And you'll also see that over here in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a pencil with some papers too, so students can share what they're feeling. Another strategy is breathing techniques. If we look at the top right corner, it says breathe with me. There is a book. And I mean, and there's a lot of different ones that you can use. I just use this picture of this book where students can be taught different breathing techniques to help them. In my classroom, we use a lot of animal ones like snake breaths. So you go, and how long can you hold that hiss? And they'll use that to calm down, or bear breaths, and or different, and there's a lot of different names of them, but there's a lot of different ones. I use Go Noodle for some of the guided breathing activities. I actually use Go Noodle for a lot of different things because it really does. It's a very universal tool that lets me do different things, but breathing practices are a great way to get students to calm themselves. And once you get them to learn the strategies, you can ask them to do it outside of the guided part, going, okay, let's take 3 bear breaths, and then do that with them. And that can be done anytime anybody's getting frustrated and is having trouble regulating their emotions. Let's see. The next one is a calming corner. So I took a picture of that to have a picture of that from Google. It's just a little calming corner that has a bunch of different objects and things that a student, and sometimes it's a beanbag chair with books. Sometimes there's a fish tank with a chair. It's just an area where students can get up, walk away, calm themselves down, and then come back. I always suggest having one of those flip timers, so then students know there's only so long they can stay there unless their IEP says otherwise. I put like a 5-minute timer, so then they can just flip it over, calm down, stay in that corner, and then come back when they're ready. Another strategy is having sensory objects for students. Now, sensory objects are a great way to practice stress management when they're trying to think. I know in my classroom, I always have a drawer full of squishies and other sensory objects. So there might be things like the fidget spinner you see, or the little squishy box on there. And students will get those and they'll play with the fidget spinner, or they'll squish the fox, they'll play with, they'll pull the noodles. And I should not say play because it's not a toy, it's a tool. And it's really important when you use any type of sensory objects, whether there's chairs for them to sit in, there's a lot of different things you can use. But whenever you use something like that, you need to explicitly teach how it's to be used and them to know that it is a tool and not a toy for it to be effective. Ex- Because you don't want something that you're going to have a lot of disruption. But if you implement it early on, I always implement it after I wait about 2 weeks into the school year, then I start to implement the sensory objects. And at that point, I make sure the students know that it is a tool, not a toy. And if a student loses the right to use that, they can try again later, but you want to make sure that you take that and they know that it's not okay to use it as a toy. And then you can come back later and say, okay, are you ready to try again? But that lets them know that that is a tool for calming. Um, and then another strategy on here is the use of calming strategy bookmarks. That itself sounds like it's not really a strategy, but having a little bookmark or a little paper that students can refer to, and I'm like, okay, you're seeming frustrated. Can you pick one of your calm down strategies uh, so we can move on, or so that you can calm yourself, and that will help students with self management and self awareness, because they're going to have to be aware that they're frustrated to go to there if they do it on their own, and self management because they're trying to calm their impulse, calm and make good decisions, and just being impulsive and just uh doing what they were going to do without taking that moment to say, "Hey, is this a responsible decision or not?" Um, and then that one actually has a lot of different strategies on it. If we look at it, it says, "Okay, so think a happy thought. So think something positive." That's one strategy. Taking deep breaths, we already talked about that, but that's also on that strategy. Talking to someone else, uh, that is a great strategy for sometimes you need to vent your emotions out, and that is a strategy students can make. Um, the setting a timer and taking a break, the setting the timer will be using the strategy like the calming center. So I would set the timer and go take a break for the 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what kind of timer you have there. Use positive self talk, look at photos, take a walk or exercise. Exercise is another big one I use. I only have that strategy on here as on this little card, but that is another thing from Go Noodle I do quite often. And for second grade, it works really well on multiple wavelengths because one, it helps them activate their background knowledge. So then it's actually kind of going into what I'm doing when I'm teaching, because they do have dances and workouts that are related to different subjects. So there is this one song that's called Greater Than or Hullabaloo, but it's about greater than or less than. And so we'll do that Hullabaloo dance all together to burn off energy. And then we're going to do a quick mindfulness, and then we're going to start on our lesson. And so that lets them exercise, which is a self-regulation strategy, because it's helping students with their impulse control because they're using that energy right then. It's motivating because they're enjoying themselves and they're dancing and they're singing. It's it's being aware of their thoughts and feelings, because then we go into the mindfulness, and they have to really like it. That's all about thinking about yourself, thinking about your making responsible decisions, having self-management, self-awareness. So, I mean, this slide actually has probably like 15 strategies, but these are all things you can easily input into a day-to-day lesson for your second graders. Okay, so the next strategy I'm going to talk about is integration into academic curricular areas. So, like I said before, movement breaks with that are related to the subjects you're teaching would be integration to academic curriculum. Another great one is the two strategies I'm going to talk about for this page are growth mindset and back talk strategy. So, a growth mindset, these strategies can be used every day, embedded into instruction, and it supports students by disrupting the negative feedback loops, increases student efficacy. Uh, so it will Growth mindset is one of those strategies that is all about getting to use the power of yet and to disrupt all the negative thoughts that may come into your head. Like, I'm no good at math. Well, everyone could be good at math. It's a matter of, do you see those mistakes as negatives or as positives? How do you look at challenges that come? And developing a growth mindset in our students will help them persevere in the long run, whether it's school, work, whatever they're doing in life. A growth mindset will be really helpful. So, teachers can promote this growth mindset and back talk strategy by reading books or and stories that are about characters who face challenges and develop strategies to overcome those challenges. They can conduct activities that give students the chance to practice phrases that promote growth mindset. We can display visible reminders through the school. So, like this little poster right here is my favorite mindset poster for anything when it comes to teachers talking about SEL strategies for growth mindset, because it kind of compares the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and it shows the differences in how you would perceive each one. But you could have positive little posters to show or bulletin boards. And then the most important thing is to model it yourself as an educator. So when we're increasing our students' self-efficacy, what that basically means is we want the students to know that their ability and their competence is going to grow with the more effort they put in. I like to say it utilizes the power of yet. So I can't do this turns into the I can't do this yet. And when you get students to kind of take that power of yet into them, where they start to believe that they can learn anything if they just take the time, they're going to succeed more. If you get a chance, go to YouTubed and check out some of Joe Buller's. She's a professor at Stanford's videos. They go all the way from kindergarten to high school, and they just help students understand what a growth mindset is. I usually use that in conjunction with like a journal. So we'll watch a quick growth mindset video and then we'll do a journal entry. And those, you'll notice a lot of strategies kind of feed into each other because they're building blocks. They just kind of interconnect to build a strong foundation. So it's really important that it's not one strategy, one and you're done. It's use as many strategies as you find effective. And in the most strategies are just small little things that you're probably doing and you just don't realize you're doing. So the back talk strategy, because I know I kind of went over it, but I want to talk about it specifically. This strategy, teachers help the students disrupt negative thoughts and replace them with positive ones. So they both kind of feed into each other, the growth mindset and the back talk strategy. So the back talk strategy is when they start to replace those negative thoughts in their head with only positive ones. Like, instead of saying I'm not get any good with math, well, they can move to the thought of, well, I did get several problems right, so I know I'm good at some math, so I can just keep working towards it and get better. And there's a big jump from one mindset to the other, but that will help students and improve with their self-awareness and self-management. I wanted to end this presentation with reteaching procedures. So the SEL approach that I focused on this slide is school organization climate. Now, while this is for school organization, it works within the classroom because you're going to use it pretty often. Now, I use this strategy frequently after the second week of school. And the reason why I said it's the second week is because the first 2 weeks, I'm teaching the initial rules. This is when the first time students are learning like what's expected of them, what are the rules in all the places, and I teach basically one area every day. So one day might be computers and I focus on computers, one my day is hallways, one day it's playground, and that way I can really dive deep into what the rules and procedures are. But after I finish those initial lessons, I refer to this reteaching procedure chart. Now, how this one is from the PBIS team, and students are retaught as often as needed, and the reteaching gives students a chance to change their behavior without direct consequences. So that helps build relationships too. So it's not straight to citation, not straight to referral. It's giving them a chance to correct the behavior and to talk to you about it and build a relationship with you, and they can really work on that responsible decision making competency for SEL. So I just kind of want to go through the procedures. So I see, say I see a student on the playground and they're playing helicopter. Helicopters when you take a rope and you swing it above your head, and there's a chance that, other students will get hit. Well, I'm going to go up to that student and say, "Oh, can my friend please come with me?" And I'm going to walk them to the big rules poster that's by our playground. And I'm going to ask them, and right now, so we went from here where the problem is to right here, where now we're walking the student to the poster. And then I'm going to ask them, "So, what should I have seen with you doing with that jump rope?" And that student's going to go one of two different ways. They're going to say, "I don't know," and then you're going to prompt them with some questions, or they're going to tell you, I shouldn't have been swinging the rope above my head." And then I'm going to say, "Okay, what rule do you think I did not observe you following when you were doing that?" And they're going to see our roar rules and they're going to go, "Well, A, always safe. I wasn't being always safe in our roar because when I was swinging the rope, it could have hit someone." Now, this is where it's going to go. So students might need some guiding to get to that answer because they might say, "Oh, I really don't know. I was doing everything I was supposed to do. No one taught me." Well, every student is taught these rules. So, and we have whole assemblies that are to these rules outside of us teaching them in the class. So, I know that that student probably knew the rule before, but I'm going to reteach it anyway. And I'm going to say, "Okay, well, let's learn about this rule. Why do you think we wouldn't swing a rope above our heads?" And we would talk about it and we would go there and we would kind of just work through the rules. And then if the staff observes students following the rule previously taught, then I'm going to go back and say, "Oh, you know what? Thank you so much. This time I see you are making a very safe choice by you and being very responsible and respecting yourself and others by making safe choices on the playground." And then I'm going to write them a roar ticket and give them a roar ticket because then I see that they've corrected the behavior. And if if I do see them breaking it again, I'm going to go back and reteach again. Because one of the things that I learned through my time in PBIS trainings is it takes, and I can't quote it specifically, but it was over 25 times to unlearn a behavior. So if a student is used to doing something, there's going to be a lot of reminding and a lot of them having to do the behavior correctly before they know that they take that in and make that change permanent. And but it's really important that citations are not the first thing because citations don't help students reteach or relearn and know what they're supposed to do. That's not going to help you build relationships. So while you will use them, if you continue, if I see, on the third day, I still see that student swinging it around, I might have to do a citation and call home and say, and have a conversation with home. but we want to make sure we're trying to reteach before we get to that step. Um, there's so many other strategies to use. I've only covered a little bit of them, but as you can see with just how they interconnect from one strategy to the next, you could really support your second grade class, or actually any of your primary grade classes, with these strategies and it be effective. And under each slide, I actually did put the scholarly support links if you're curious where to learn more about it. I appreciate all the time that you spent listening to me talk, and I will see you on the next presentation. Thank you.